Server from 17 once again. This is my Ninja Gaiden 3 Ultimate Ninja video walkthrough. This is day 8, and this is the first part of it, the spider tank fight that's going to upset everybody who plays this game. Because since we've upgraded our Dragon Sword, we can now kill this tank in record speed on every difficulty. One hit from this sword will sever its limb's armour, the next will sever the limb. And when you compare this to every spider fight that we've had, including the 2 on the previous mission, it really makes you wonder, why the fuck was Ryu running around with an upgraded sword? Like, dude, if you know that awesome swords exist, get an awesome sword. Then we would have never hated those fights. But anybody that did see the cutscene will know that I believe the sword is given to us. Is it the sword of... it's like a fiend sword given by Genshin, so... it's a very powerful sword, so that makes a little bit of sense. But the fights that follow this, as you can see, you can skip them, and it's a bunch of white beret guys and just a ton of standard enemies, this fella included, the rip-off Metal Gear dude, you know, the part-time genome soldier. And you're going to be fighting a lot in this chapter because it's a long one filled with a lot of fights, so the more fights you can skip, in my mind, the quicker you can get through this hellish experience. Obviously, if you want to go for karma, or you're a score guy, you will have to do the fights and you'll have to try and get as much steel on bone as you can, because just like the ultimate techniques of previous karma runs, in previous Ninja Gaidens, this game is predominantly based off of steel and bone. And at my time of recording this, I wasn't very good at doing the steel on bone. Not saying that I would have done it to these enemies, because these enemies can be quite awkward to do it with. You'll notice my go-to move here is always the wind path off the head into flying swallow kill obliteration technique. And there's a good reason for this, because A, it's completely safe. The entire time I'm doing what you're watching, I cannot be killed, I cannot be injured, and that's why it works. And it was one of the things I hated about this game when I first played it, and I first ignored it, and I first hated it on second play, and and every play after that. But the more I play Razor's Edge, the more I come to miss it, and it's an interesting bit of hypocrisy, because to me, the thing I liked about Ninja Gaiden was the precision, you know, the systems of things where you had a setup to beat enemies, but none of the games ever gave you this kind of safety. So this game kind of, you know, it made it a lot more accessible in certain ways. Like, if I show you how to do the wind path off the head into flying swallow to obliteration technique, any single person who picks up the pad will be able to beat most of this game. If I were to show you in, say, Ninja Gaiden 2, how to wind path to guillotine throw into a wall into obliteration technique to use the iframes not to blow up because you're stuck with so many incendiary shurikens that you're essentially this giant terrorist-like Christmas tree, you would not be able to beat that game. You would have a very good technique that will help you in a lot of situations, but anybody I pass that pad to is about to get frustrated in the span of about 15 minutes and never play the game again. And that's the difference. It's a skill level difference, which this game just doesn't have. And it doesn't have it for a lot of reasons. The first one is the most obvious. They simplified it and made it easy. They did. They made it much easier. But it's the control that is the biggest enemy. You listen to anybody who played this game extensively, who beat it on Ultimate Ninja, they'll tell you the same thing. The hardest part about Ninja Gaiden 3 is Ryu, because he doesn't do what you want him to do. He doesn't respond as quickly as he used to respond. And even in the old Ninja Gaiden games, there were certain moves that you could do where when you landed, there was recovery frames where you could not wind path away, or you couldn't... I forget the name of it. Is it wind run? The normal dash, the evade? You couldn't do it. You would press it, Ryu would stand there like a twat, and you'd probably get grabbed. And then you'd be, you know, it did used to be this way in the old game, I would have dodged and not got hit. And then you play the old game and you realise, well, hang on a second, it is that way. I would have still got hit. And what it becomes a case of then is of learning the techniques that do give you the most recovery and trying to either cancel them or not do them. And one technique that a lot of people use is the shuriken cancel, where if you know you're about to go into an animation or you want to cancel out of an animation, you throw a single shuriken and it allows you to immediately reset and go into a new technique. And if you get good at that, it's kind of useful. That aside, you know, you're going to get caught a lot until you learn not to do it. And I think that's a mistake, and it's a mistake that this game fixes in some ways for certain bits. Which is, a good example would be post Izuna drop. Post Izuna drop on previous Ninja Gaidens, when you land, you're vulnerable for about a second and then you can evade and carry on and do whatever you want to do. On this game, they allowed you to chain a move on landing from Izuna drop. And when I went back to Ninja Gaiden 2 and Ninja Gaiden 1, I couldn't do that, and it threw me off a little bit, and I'm really surprised that they didn't have it. So there's, even on the earlier games, which I adore, there were limitations to what you could do. There was limits to reuse techniques, and I would really like to see a Ninja Gaiden game where every situation can be avoided, every punishment put forth to the player can be countered. And, you know, maybe at the highest level of players there is, you know, if you know all the techniques and you play Ninja Gaiden all the time and you're super deep on it and you love it. But from the way I look at it, from my experience, there's always something. You know, the entire reason why Nimpo cancelling exists is because of that very reason I'm mentioning. Like, how many times have you watched a video where somebody's been caught in a recovery frame or caught in an animation and they'll press Nimpo to immediately cancel it to not take damage? You know, they didn't want to use the Nimpo, they didn't particularly need to use the Nimpo, but it was the only thing they could do to get around it. And I would just really like to have a skillful way to mitigate that penalty. And that is my ambition in games, you know. I keep mentioning how I'd love to get into the games industry, and I'm in fact trying to get into the games industry just because I'm fascinated by the subsystems and the meta that's happening all the time. You know, I'm interested in the frame values, I'm interested in all the details of it, because to me it's fascinating and it's interesting. Especially with things like AI, and I would love to be a part of it and to have some kind of control or some kind of feedback and input so that I could learn about it, and thus I could share it with people on my videos so that we know more. But as it stands at the moment, it's a very difficult industry to get in there when all you are is, you know, young, full of cum and really optimistic. You generally need to know somebody or get incredibly lucky. But this is a good example, the alchemists. The alchemists have an algorithm, is the only thing I can think of. It'll be a line of script or code attached to their AI which simply does one thing, and that is auto-blocks 95% of any attack. There'll be a probability scale on that algorithm that allows you to get a hit through at any normal time, that 95% of the time they will auto-block. And I think that is really, really lazy. Because the one thing that I enjoy most about challenge is fair challenge. I don't mind an enemy that can insta-kill me, as long as I can insta-kill him, or whatever move he does that does so much damage is either telegraphed to a certain degree or avoidable when you know how. And that's how it should work. And the things with the Alchemist, and it becomes an even bigger problem on Razor's Edge, because I would go as far to say that the Alchemists are worst on Razor's Edge, even though you have more tools to kill them, because the developers have compensated for this exploit that you're seeing here, which is a technique that kills them, guaranteed, and they've compensated so much because of what they've added that the alchemists are essentially, they're like agents from the Matrix. They let you hit them. Every other time they don't, and it gets to the point where it is incredibly frustrating. They will auto-block everything, absolutely everything, and it isn't any fun. And that's the main issue with such, you know, totalitarian design. You know, this is the way they work, there's no other way they work. They just block everything and that's it. You know, one way, one ruling. It's absolute, there's nothing in that. Because that's the way they've been designed, they're the enemy that you don't have any fun playing against, and we play games predominantly for fun. There are a multitude of, you know, other reasons and other motivations that we get through games, but the primal instinct on a game is the enjoyment and the fulfillment of doing it, playing it, experiencing it. And they destroy that because they're arseholes. They're absolutely arseholes. And it gets to the point where you'll either spam UTs, spam Nimpo, or you're at a level where you've found some kind of trick to launch them and kill them, or you'll just complain. But thank you for watching, guys. I will see you in the rest of this guide. We're 3 videos to the end, so let's get rolling.